Good morning, or good afternoon, rather. Yes, it's lovely to see smiling faces, young, bright, smiling faces. Uh, when I put myself together with computer, we have a sort of war. I wrote 23 books in my life, and all handwritten with pencil, and I still do it. And I don't know, and I was at Olivetti, can you imagine, many years ago. So technically, I should be acquainted with all sort of progress. But I don't know why. I love to see my writing, and I like to just to strike it when it's possible, or when it's necessary, and writing instead something else, and with that I'm very happy. I, I really sort of compliment you that you are doing a very, very good job, because without you probably the world would stop, I suppose. And thank God, I am 80 years old. That's why I said 60, because, considering, I started when I was 20 in cooking, and I started to cook not because I feel to be a chef, but for necessity. I remember I left Olivetti and I went to Vienna through a lovely sort of blonde, wonderful Viennese girl. I had the possibility to go to Vienna and continue studying there, and I left sort of Ivrea and Olivetti, and I felt all European. I wanted to learn languages, and I learned up to 5 so far. And it is very, very good, because I wanted to communicate with as many people as possible in the world and feel really part of the world. Vienna. Vienna, and there I felt really sort of I am in my element. People, what I like in life is to observe life like this. In Italy, sometimes life is like this. In certain cases, it's even like this. Italians, they know that. So that's why we go away from Italy sometimes. Because this sort of narrow-mindedness, we are. My mother used to say that when God created Italy, looked from above and said, it's too beautiful. I have to balance it and create the Italians. So that, as we know, there are 20 regions or even more, and we all have something in our head that's unbelievable. But we love commonly good style, good things, beautiful things, art, food, obviously. Food is very much part of it. And so I decided then what I could do is to learn cooking. In fact, it was much more a necessity, because I wanted to have the food for myself. Viennese food was okay, but you desire to have something. And so I started to cook Italian. And I saw that by cooking Italian, I could reach quite a lot of people, friends. I remember it was the time in the 60s where some Viennese people, good families like the Hohenlohe, the Bolkenstein, all very famous family with Minnesänger and so on, but they didn't have money. But they were hungry. And we were sharing these pastas in a wonderful way, so that I saw that food can be a media to reach other people. And I can't talk about the fact to reach girls, obviously. Instead to say, come and see my etchings, I could say, come and eat my pasta. That was a completely different thing. And don't laugh. The cooking went on and on and on, and then I discovered my passion for mushrooms. One is here. You see this? It's a porcino. This is a cep. because that's what I do as well, so sticks, walking sticks. I have a collection of about 300 of those. I go into the woods, I see a lovely straight stick, I take away the branches and then I whittle. It's called whittling. And I have various bits and pieces that they tell me that I like to manipulate, to change things with my hands, form, shape. The food is one of them. And it is very, very interesting. How many people can cook here? Hands up. Oh, everybody, my goodness. That's good. That's very, very good because it's very rewarding, very therapeutic. And it's at the end of the evening, so you can say, oh, the day, you can say, wonderful, I did it. And then you cook and you eat something very special, prepared with your hands. And your partner will say, well done, and give you a pat on the shoulder, minimum, if not more. And so food become an entire world. I wrote all those books, 23, because I wanted necessary to put on paper what I know and what I feel. And it's been a struggle sometimes, because it takes 1 year to write a book. I still write them as a crafted book, really sort of do the researches, do trying myself, cooking the recipes, and all of that, and taking also the pictures. No, the pictures are taken by a photographer, but I am there cooking the food because I want to be sure that the food looks like I produce it. Writing a book, is anybody writing or did write a book or something of you? It is a very, very interesting thing, a diary or something, because you see then what you have done times ago. Number 23 book is this one here. Number 24, I wasn't deciding if to write a book for children called Signor Porcino and Madame Chanterelle. So to make sure that British, they know a little bit more about mushrooms, because they don't know very much. All of the rest of Europe and the world as well, they know it, but in Britain, you have a fear of mushrooms. So you kick wonderful example of porcini around, so setas. And when was it? I was doing filming for the BBC, and we find a few mushrooms, and then we needed a little bit more footage of filming. And I saw from far away a wonderful mushroom like this coming out of the grass. And in the moment when I said, oh, look at that, a little boy came around and kicked it. I jumped in the air and I was screaming like mad, and the parents of the child, they came around, what happened? What happened? I said, well, you just destroyed the most wonderful example of porcini. And then they decided to cooperate, and they went along, and we find some more of the porcini to take a picture. But just to say that the consideration when you see a mushroom, something like this, mighty, and mushroom, they are really wonderful thing. If you study a little bit, how many of you knows that without mushroom we couldn't exist? Hands up. Nobody. Without mushrooms, we couldn't exist. They are at the base of our life in turning everything that is organic in unorganic. Comes the idea? We would otherwise sit on piles and piles of unrotted leaf, unrotten tomatoes, unrotted fruit, unrotten everything unrotted. Can you imagine? Piling and piling and piling. This is thanks to fungi or mushrooms. There are 100,000 of those known, And there are still the mycologists, they're still looking for some more. So if you really consider all of that, it's interesting, and they wanted to write this book under sort of key, funny keys for children and grown-up to understand what mushroom is about. So now when you eat a mushroom, think about there's no meat, it's no vegetables, there's something in between. And maybe that we come from the mushroom. Because about billions of years ago, the first thing that came, they were algae, they were spreading. Some of them remained in the water, some of them they went on the land. And maybe that we, because we have the same reproduction as mushroom, and many other things that are very similar. I don't go into details. But mushroom is really a fantastic thing. That's why is somebody of you gone to pick mushrooms? Italians? In Calabria? Calabria, wonderful mushrooms there. It is a fantastic thing. If you have the possibility, go with somebody that knows about it. Otherwise it would be your last trip. And so mushroom is one of the items that I work with. And this vegetable book came about in wanting to portray the vegetables in another things. Very often I see vegetables served in a restaurant, they look crucified by the chef. Really sort of gray, sort of flabby, and horrible. Other vegetables, treated well, they taste fantastic. They taste like meat. In fact, we have in Calabria, in Sicily, and in other places, the very thing that they cooked here, the Parmigiano of aubergine, there's a typical example of treating an aubergine like meat. In fact, you eat this Parmigiana, it's very satisfactory, it's very, very nice. So this is that book. Now, I wanted to tell you, because somebody was asking what is the new book, because I had the Signor Porcino and Madame Chanterelle, and here, the vegetables, that was a 2 years operation. I wrote it and I was very, very, very happy. And then it came the Signor Porcino and Madame Chanterelle. And then it was another book that I wanted to write about the Neal Street Restaurant, which I had for many years, for 26 years, with all the people that they came in and so on. But I thought to myself, who will buy that book? You know, the restaurant doesn't exist anymore. It's just something for aficionados, for people that they love the entire thing, but leave it. The other day, I received an email from my editor, which is in Spain on holiday. He said, Antonio, what about a book about fruit? Bang! It rang a bell. Fruit is one of my preferred things in life. And I said, okay. And I started not to be able to sleep. And in not sleeping, I was already taking notes what to write. So in that night, I went up and in 2 hours, because what I do of a new book, I do the intro first. Because then I have to keep on the intro when I'm writing what I am doing. And it was wonderful. In the morning I look at it, it's quite nice. And now I'm putting everything together, all the items and all the what happened in my life regarding fruit. Imagine wartime. My father was station master of the railway. My mother used to cook all sorts of things in sort of autumn, jams and so on. Now, we had next to the station a place where to put a cauldron like this, a copper. And we were there living with farmers around, so the small station. and everybody was giving us fruit. And we were putting all the fruit in there, and cooked for 12 hours. That was funny because, with fire underneath. In the night, we had sort of a recognition aeroplane from the Germans, and to avoid that they see the fire, we children, we were 5, we holding a sort of a cloth over that cauldron and waiting that the aeroplane would go away so they wouldn't see the flame. But can you imagine the expectation of that sort of jam? It was a brown, sticky stuff that was wonderful. When we were coming back from school, we were having on bread with a bit of butter and so on. It was a real tea, high tea, Italian high tea. So now that jam called mostarda, if somebody comes from Piedmont, they use it also in putting it on food like bollito misto, boiled meat, or as a savory thing. It's very, very good. Anyway, I decided now that my next book, it's about fruit. So probably in 1.5 year time, you will see the book floating around, and not because I threw it in the Thames, but because it's ready. And writing books is really a wonderful thing, because you write something that you have in your mind, in your heart, and if you are sort of not commercial, because there are people that are writing also commercially, and I don't. But the pleasure well, you see, I'm falling apart already. It comes a point where I don't know anymore, then I tell a joke. I have a few jokes. One of them is so stupid. In fact, I will write it in the book because it's regarding fruit. There's a girl who has a very wide mouth, very wide mouth. So the mother is very, very worried, goes to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, tell your daughter to do an exercise and say fruit, fruit. So make really all the time fruit. So a month or two later, they meet again, and they said, so how was it? Said, oh, it's very well, very well. So did you repeat this? Oh, yeah, yes. What do you say? He said, banana. I laughed so much about so stupid joke like this, to see somebody say banana. Stupid jokes sometimes they're nice. Did you know about this one? Banana. Then is that one about the memory, obviously. A man that says to the woman, both have Alzheimer's. He says to her, darling, can you go into the kitchen? This is very appropriate now to my age. Can you go into the kitchen and fetch me an ice cream? Perhaps you can put a little bit of pistachio nuts on top, also some fluid chocolate, and write it down, otherwise you forget it. He said, oh, no, today I'm fine. She comes back about 10, 15 minutes later with a couple of fried eggs. And he said, I told you to write it down. There is the fucking bacon. Yet, you will encounter this sort of memory lapsing. But probably the Christmas already gone. For me, one of the sweetest is that one of the son of a mafia boss. In 'Ndrangheta, similar to the mafia, not far away, Sicily, because the gentleman is from Calabria, and they have another mafia. The Napolitan have another one. The Pugliese, they have another one. They call different, but it's the same. But anyway, the son of the mafia boss said, Papa, I would like to have a bicycle from Father Christmas. And in Italy, it's not Father Christmas bringing the present, but baby Jesus. And the father said, look, write to baby Jesus, promise to be a good boy, perhaps he will have a bicycle. Dear baby Jesus, I promise to be a good boy for 1 month if you send me a bicycle. He's not happy about that. No. Dear baby Jesus, I promise to be a good boy for 1 week if you send me a bicycle. He's not happy about that neither. Said, why do I have to promise to be a good boy? I'm a good boy anyway. So he takes the Madonna that he has naturally as an Italian boy on the table, put in a drawer, close it, and he writes a new letter. I said, dear baby Jesus, if you want to see your mother again, bring me a bicycle. I find it always very sweet. I said, vuoi vedere tua madre? Yeah, no, with jokes I could go on and on and on, but savories as well, but better not. And regarding my food, I saw before in the kitchen that they have done a very good job. And I was really very sort of impressed by the fact that Google offered to the entire, only this house here, yes, not more, because otherwise the entire London would come here.